Let me ask you this question, brother. You are always in Africa on the regular. I don't see them participating in our movement. Let me finish. You got the African Day Parade. You don't see the Africans. You got the festival that be going on in Brooklyn, the band festival, the African festivals. Where's the Africans at? When we doing our rallies and our marches, where's the Africans at on your side? Talk to us really about that, man.
See, let me tell you something. We think slavery in America was something. Slavery in Africa is still in force. You talking about deaf, blind, and dumb. Don't confuse you because somebody got on some printed cloth that's printed in Holland or India that you're looking at an African cultural expression. That's not an African cultural expression. That cloth was printed in a European country and then sold to Africans. And they've accepted that as their cloth. You understand what I'm saying? Just that piece. Now, they do speak the language, but they know less about their history than you and I do. So you've got a deaf, blind, dumb, backwards person speaking an African language, coming from the African country, came here to be a parasite on their own people with no respect for themselves as human beings, and then because they speak a language, try to play you off like they got something culturally that you don't have. The most culturally enforced African in the world is the African American.
Peace and Black Power, family. Welcome to another Sarnetta TV. Yes. House of Consciousness production.
When you're doubting that bullshit that you've been told, and you need that info. Sarnetta TV. Sarnetta TV. Tune in to consciousness and watch the lies fold. Then you can let the truth flow. On Sarnetta TV. Sarnetta TV. When you feel that melanin about to explode, like you feel the wind blow. It's Sarnetta TV. Sarnetta TV. I know you got the truth, but you can get more, so you continue to grow. Sarnetta TV. Sarnetta TV.
Here we go once again, family. You know I'ma stay on my job and keep bringing you sound and profound information. I have today for you, Professor Smalls. I know you're gonna love this one right here, brothers and sisters. We're gonna deal with a little bit of Hebrew. We're gonna deal with a little bit of voodoo. We're gonna get into some powerful information of real Professor James Smalls.
Peace. We're here with Sarnetta TV with the esteemed brother, Professor James Small. Came through to check us out today and is gonna grant us with some wisdom right here. First, I want to say, Professor Smalls, what me, my brother Sarnetta, and another one of our partners, and a couple of other cats that run with us, every Tuesday night at the National Black Theater, we're doing something called Money Making Tuesdays to try to bring in an awareness to economics, to start an economic conversation in our community. We speak a lot about history, but we don't speak a lot about economics, and we're not getting the response from the people that we think we should be getting, right? And what we're getting a lot of is a lot of criticism and a lot of negative comments. Can we tell me, like, what you think it's going to take for us to get people involved in an economic conversation, and why are we coming up with so much criticism?
Right. Let's hit first. You said I was going to bring some wisdom. Remember, wisdom is the appropriate application of knowledge.
Okay.
And so that's where we're running into trouble. We have people who got some knowledge, but they can't apply it appropriately. But they'll say they got wisdom. But if you can't apply knowledge so that it does you some good, then that's not wisdom. We just have to start making that base. And the second thing we have to look at, African Americans need to define themselves. You can't say no profanity over this, right? Because I was going to put it, they didn't need to define their black asses because they don't understand how friggin' confused they are. And I'm going to call the names, the Arabs in the community, they got their shit hooked up with Arabs. So they got control of all the stores. That's not some accident in history. That's a network that had the U.S. government assisting them. The Koreans, they got all the dry cleaners. That's a network, an international network financed by folks from outside of this country and promoted by the government of the United States. If you look at the nail issue, imagine black women going into a place, having their nails done by Asian women who wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. I mean, that's some deep shit that we really messed up like that. We can't even, black beauty shops can't even do their thing because black women are going in other ethnic group beauty shops getting their hair done. The way you make money, you sell your culture to yourself, all right? If you can't sell your food to yourself, and you can't sell your nails to yourself, and your hair to yourself, and your barbershop to yourself, and your clothing styles to yourself, then you're going to be a slave of whoever's selling that shit to you. And that's what it comes down to. I think Claude Anderson said, yes, last year we spent $1 billion, we spent $1 trillion. It was meaningless because it wasn't aggregated, it wasn't organized, it wasn't brought together. And so we have many black people who are working, and they have to be in order for us to spend $1 trillion. Right. But they have no bonding relationship to the group. If you look at people from China, from Japan, from the Arab nations, from Britain, from France, they are the Italians, the Poles, they bond to their group. Group comes first. We got some foolish backwards notion that we're supposed to be hooked up with everybody. Right. And not even realizing that nobody is hooked up with us economically except to act as our parasite while we are their saprophyte. And let me break that shit down to people. Parasite means something that preys on another organism for its sustenance. A saprophyte is the organism that allows someone else to prey on it for its sustenance. And we need to stop that parasitical, saprophytical relationship we have between other immigrant groups that have no respect, no regards for African Americans except to use them to make money, to take care of their neighborhood, to provide them with food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security. Because that's what this shit is really all about. Can I provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for me, my family, and my group? And I can only do that if I control economics first, politics, and then culture. Right. You know, we know if you got to define what your economic reality and possibilities are, then you have to create a politics to manage that shit, and we haven't done it. Right. Okay? Then you have to have a culture that informs you of the ethical, moral parameters in which you stay in order to do this. There goes one of my brothers. How you doing, my brother? Right. And so economics is the first principle of survival. Right. And African Americans confused because we really think we are white Americans with blackface. Right. Now let's say it again. African Americans are confused because they think they are white Americans in blackface. They don't understand they're nothing more than saprophytes for the white American, the Asian American, and the Arab American parasites. Right. They come to the country, know that they can come to our community and suck our bloods, and we'll enjoy the sucking. We'll treat them like they're our best friends. Right. They won't hire us. Dr. King did a whole speech on black nationalism that even make Malcolm's speeches on black nationalism look withered. When Dr. King says you shouldn't shop where you can't work. Dr. King went on and named the companies in America that wasn't hired black folks and said black folks shouldn't buy their products. So if you want to hang to a Christian way of looking at it, go listen to Dr. King's speeches on black economics in the black community. And he'll tell you better than Malcolm or Garvey what you should be doing. And so what a lot of our people are doing is being irresponsible to their group, and they're using integration, and they're using Christianity to prop up their irresponsibility. Right. You understand? To cover up their irresponsibility.
Dr. Claude Anderson calls it inappropriate behavior.
Real inappropriate behavior. Right. So what we have to understand that you can't provide economic, politics, and culture for your people unless you can control the economics in your community. That means the commodities that you buy on a daily basis for food, clothing, shelter, toys, school supplies, those things, should toilet tissues, nail polish, all of the beauty products, all of those things should be bought from your own people. And that way, as Claude Anderson said, a dollar has to circulate at least 6 times in order for you to make some money. And in our community, the dollar circulates 1 time from our hand to the foreigner's hands. Right, and we need to be clear. I'm not anti-foreigner, but I'm anti-people who come here and work collectively as parasites, taking advantage of my humanity, but don't give me nothing back in place of that humanity.
Now, I got 2 questions for you. Number 1, whose fault is that, right? That we allow that to happen. And number 2, what we get a lot of is people saying, well, we need solutions, we need solutions, we need solutions. And we respond to them.
Spend your money with your kind.
Right.
That's the first solution.
We respond to them that, look, Marcus Garvey came with a plan. Elijah Muhammad had a plan. Amos Wilson wrote a book for the plan.
Dr.
And
King
nobody
laid out a plan,
so
and they
we have solutions. What we trying to do with Money Making Tuesdays is bring those solutions back to the forefront, and we getting all of this resistance.
No, because you don't understand. You having a problem, no disrespect, because you're expecting the blind to see. Sarnetta's got a problem because he's expecting the dumb to speak. You understand? Elijah said they're deaf, blind, and dumb. I used to wonder what he meant by that. But our people really are. They're culturally deaf, they're economically deaf, and they're politically deaf. They're culturally blind, they're economically blind, and they're politically blind. This thing didn't just happen accidentally, brothers.
Right.
The United States government, after the 60s, see what people don't understand, when you don't understand history, you're going to end up where we are.
Right.
In the 60s, it was the black youth that led, the elders led the movement, but it was the black youth that was the army for that movement. Behind Dr. King, those hundreds and thousands of people you saw, 95% was youth under 25, mostly between 15 and 21. Behind Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam was the youth between 18 and 25. Behind the Black Panther Party was the youth between 15 and 23. It was the black youth that shook this shit to its core. It was the black youth that made all those laws come into being. You just saw it in Ferguson. They weren't scared of Al Sharpton and a few Negroes marching around singing, it's gonna be a better day. They got scared when the black youth hit the street and started burning shit down. Okay, and I praise them brothers and sisters. Had the black youth not tore that shit up in the first 2 nights in Ferguson, the president would have never came off vacation, the attorney general never went out there, the FBI would have not gotten involved, and neither would the Department of State. So that black youth was turned upon economically. The economic cripplingness that we are seeing in the black community is directed at the black youth. Even the prison industrial complex is directed at felonizing the black youth, because once you felonize the black youth, then you can practice Jim Crow against him. Right. You can deny him all of his basic rights because now you've created him as a felon. You take away his right to vote. You tell him he can't live in public housing. He can't get any kind of public assistance. He can't get jobs anywhere. You can discriminate against the black youth once you give him a felony. And so you've totally moved him out of the economic marketplace by the millions. You not only move him out of the economic marketplace by the millions, you move him off the voting rolls by the millions. And so that is the power base for your new ideas and your new development economically. But they have effectively, the government of the United States and the local municipalities working with the immigrant population have removed us from the marketplace. I just came from seeing the knee doctor. What do you call him? But at any rate, they have 20 women working in the desk where they collect the money, and the receptionist. Not a single black there. Okay, everybody there is from an immigrant population, and the excuse is they want bilingualism. Well, that's cool. You mean everybody in the office must be bilingual? But see, that's the game. That's the game that's played on us. And so this whole thing about illegal immigrants being in the country, right? You've got millions of illegal immigrants. There's no other country on earth that is allowing this. Why is America allowing it? The one that has the greatest capability to protect itself. Because that became the workforce that replaced us in the workplace. Right. That's the punishment for what we did to them.
And we don't see it. We sitting here voting for greater immigration.
Right. And so until we realize that it is the people who takes care of themselves economically, and you must then buy from self. You remember when Koch and them, I think it was Koch, whoever ran all the vendors off the street? Right. Most of those vendors, you remember, they never came back.
Right. They went to 116th Street?
No. The group that went to 116th Street was the immigrant population. They took care of them in this country. They tried to march with us the first day, and Harvey Belosi, who headed that Third World Trade Center, went to Africa and brought their leader over here to tell them not to march with us. And they pulled the Muslim brothers from Senegal and Mali out of the march. Me and Khalid was out here, Amos Wilson was out here. They pulled those brothers out, and they were rewarded with 116th Street. But the African American youngsters who were selling their tube socks and their sneakers, they never had no place to go. Nobody gave them a spot. See, that was a betrayal by people that looked just like us, and we didn't see it working with Rudy Giuliani.
We were betrayed by the African.
125th Street Mart.
Let me ask you this question, brother. You are always in Africa. You got the African Day Parade. You don't see the Africans. You got the festival that be going on in Brooklyn, the band festival, the African festival. Where's the Africans at? When we doing our rallies and our marches, where's the Africans at on your side? Talk to us really about that, man.
See, let me tell you something. We think slavery in America was something. Slavery in Africa is still in force. You talking about deaf, blind, and dumb. Don't confuse you because somebody got on some printed cloth that's printed in Holland or India that you're looking at an African cultural expression. That's not an African cultural expression. That cloth was printed in a European country and then sold to Africans. And they've accepted that as their cloth. You understand what I'm saying? Just that piece. Now, they do speak the language, but they know less about their history than you and I do. So you've got a deaf, blind, dumb, backwards person speaking an African language, coming from the African country, came here to be a parasite on their own people with no respect for themselves as human beings, and then because they speak a language, try to play you off like they got something culturally that you don't have. The most culturally enforced African in the world is the African American. Most of the movements that have changed the world, that allow all ethnic nations to profit, has been our movement. And so we get peed on and played down because these people are so punked out and scared of the white man that they feel because they're scared of the white man, they got to be against us.
Are they our people, brother, or are we our own people now?
No, we got to understand two things. We have a race, and then we have an ethnic place. Ethnically, we African Americans. Just like a guy from Africa, he can say he's African, but there's no country called African. He's either Nigerian, Ghanaian, Malian, or something. That's his ethnic nation. Racially, we are together, but economically, we may well be enemies. And we have to be clear on that. That our economic enemy is just that. And if you deal with your economic enemy like it's your friend, you're going to be the loser at the end of the day. Now, we raised the question of Pan-Africanism in this hemisphere. You know, you had the brothers from Trinidad, and then you had W.B. Du Bois, and we created this phenomena. But Africa has never created a Pan-African movement. You understand? Africa has never really supported a Pan-African movement. We had a couple of people in Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere and Mugabe, but most of Africa never gave a damn about a Pan-Africanism because they're still bogged down in the colonial slavery of European Judeo-Christian indoctrination, which is worse than anything that we've suffered. Worse than anything that we've suffered. The illusion of the clothes and the language make us think we're dealing with somebody that has some African purity culturally and spiritually. You're dealing with a confused, backwards Christian that love Europe more than they love their own ancestors. They would not even use an African word for God. You know, in Ghana, if you talk about being a traditional African, you might get beat down in the street. You understand? You're ostracized on the radio. Movies are made to show African culture as being the devil, while Christian culture is coming in as the savior. This is TV shows and on TV in Nigeria and Ghana every day. What we have to realize, because our brothers deaf, blind, and
Africa,
this is the deal.
Everybody else romanticize it, but you dropping the real thing right here. Oh yeah, Rock be dropping the real stuff too. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, brother, real quick. You coming up under Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, and you being around all these powerful teachers, are some of our ancestors Hebrew Israelites? Are we Hebrews? Are we Moors? Are we? Because we are everything.
Let me break that shit down. Let me break that shit. You know, 'cause that's some funny shit. I mean, if there's 1% of us that's Hebrews, we're lucky. Okay? The word Moor is nothing but an English corruption of a Roman word, which was a corruption of a Greek word for black. It means nothing more than black. You understand? That's what the word Moor means. The Romans who invaded Tunisia and Algeria and set up what is called Carthage, those people there call themselves Afriye. They were black people, and they call themselves Afriye, which simply meant we're humans. We live on earth. We are beings. The Romans have a sound called ka. That's an acronym for land. So the Romans said, we're going to Afri land, where the blacks live. We're going to Africa, where the Maurice live. And then we get all confused and think he's talking about a different kind of black folks, okay? There was no different kind of...
That's us defining ourselves in their paradigm.
Right, and that's why it's confusing, because most of us who call ourselves Moors don't even know the word means black.
Right.
And that's all the word means. The only other thing that's connected is that those were the brothers and sisters who converted to Islam in North Africa and then later converted to the Arab culture. But most of the people who were historically called Moors by the Italians, the Romans, those people now live in Senegal, Mali, Nigeria. They're the people we call in Hausa. So they had to flee the Arab Muslim because the white Muslim declared war on the black Muslim. That's how we lost Africa. We didn't lose Africa to some other people. The white Muslims declared war on the black Muslims. And the ironic thing, the black people of North Africa were Muslims before the Arabs or the Turks were Muslims. So you have the black Muslims who started Islam gets attacked by the white and the half-breed Muslims who have destroyed Islam. So that's the reality we got to deal with, and a lot of brothers don't.
So where did the Hebrew come from? When did that come into our history?
Yeah. The Hebrew thing is in 1700 BC, what we call Kemet, or Egypt today, was invaded by a mixed group of blacks called the Hyksos. They weren't really whites. They were maybe black folks who was kind of mixed. And they conquered northern Egypt. Those black folks who was oppressed under their foot, who escaped, after 400 years of being under their foot and accepted their cultural views, escaped and went and attacked another black people, the people of Canaanite. They were black as Ace of Spades. Most of the people we call Canaanite live in Ghana today. They call themselves the God Dang Bay people. Okay, so these other black folks who had become a mixed breed black folks, who we call the Hebrews, go and attack another black folks and take their land. Look in the book. It says, kill the women that have been with men. Kill all the men. And the girls and women who have not known men, marry them as wives. This is their Bible, committing genocide and talking about their genocide, killing black people. Then they tell you that circumcision is something the Hebrew brought. But they don't tell you that it was the Canaanite king that told Abraham, you're unclean, and taught him circumcision. And if you look up the Canaanite kings, what you're going to see, they all wore Egyptian crowns. They were nothing more than a province of Egypt. Okay? And Egypt is the black Ethiopia of the early days.
The Hebrews are coming out saying that Imhotep was a Hebrew Israelite.
They're confused. They need to go and study history. There was no such thing as the Hebrew Israelite at that time. That's an invention mostly of white people, actually, because the people didn't call themselves Hebrew Israelites. Matter of fact, if you go to Ethiopia, where the white mixed breed Roman and Greeks who converted to that tradition drove the blacks out, and the blacks went into Yemen and went into Ethiopia, and they call themselves Bene Israel. This will be the house of Israel. That's all. And the house of Israel meant that we belong to this group of people, and house simply means family, like the same word we use for family today. That's what house meant in those days. So they call themselves Bene Israel. And so Bene Israel, meaning that we are the people of Israel who've been driven out of our land by the mixed breeds, half-breed Roman and Greeks, and those who were loyal to them. And those are the same people fighting there now with the Eastern European Khazars who converted to Islam, to Judaism. And Judaism is not what was being practiced then. If you really studied their book, which is and that's not even their book, because much of what is called the Torah, if you really get down in deep, it ain't talking about no one God. You really got to get and read the damn thing for yourself. They're not talking about one God. They're talking about multiple gods. And they call some, that's in the Torah, and they call them by names. They're talking about multiple gods, but read it for yourself. Or if you just go to a book, like much as people beat up on the Pharaoh, go look in Isaiah when Taharka is living. When Taharka saves Israel, and he tells the Israel soldiers, don't attack the army of Taharka. He said he was king of Egypt and all the world. And he had come to save the Israelites from the Assyrians. The Assyrians are the first white invasion into Africa. The Hyksos is a colored invasion. The Hittites is a colored invasion. The Persians is a colored black invasion. It isn't until you get the Assyrian that you get a white invasion, and then you get the Greek, a white invasion, and then you get the Roman, a white invasion. And those are the people that formulate what we now call an Hebrew Israelite. If you go back to the early days of the Hebrew Israelite movement in this country, and Rabbi, I forgot my brother's name, who had his place on, Rabbi Matthews, you've been around, brother. That's a good thing. He didn't get. No, let me just finish this. Rabbi Matthews and his elders did not get caught up with those who end up selling out to the Jews downtown, going to Germany and studying under those cracker Jews, and coming back here calling themselves rabbis. And they're the ones that's dominated the teaching today. We need to go back and ask and talk about the history that Rabbi Matthews and them was trying to tie together to show who the people was that escaped from under the Hyksos and what happened to those people who came. They not only came back into Ethiopia and into, but you remember, we're not talking about a large population. There's millions upon millions and millions of people in Africa, and you're talking about a little spot on the map this big in a world this big. And we're going to take a little spot on the map this big and make it important because the white man made it important. Had not the white man become a Jew and had not the white man become a Christian, we wouldn't even be mentioning that shit. Okay? That's the only reason we're dealing with it, because they did that. Because our tradition, if you understand, voodoo is the mother of Judaism, voodoo is the mother of Christianity, voodoo is the mother of Islam. And ain't none of their leadership got the testicles to attest to it. And they all know it to be so if they're learned enough. Now, okay, and let me just say, I'm using voodoo to mean traditional African spiritual system.
Right. Will you be here this week or next week? When are you out of town, brother? Hope you ain't going nowhere.
I'm heading in Haiti on Monday.
Oh.
Okay, I'm going to celebrate.
Class this Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, I'm only going to be there until Sunday, and we're going to celebrate his victories over the crackers, and we're going to enjoy ourselves. The first day we're on the ground, we're going to a voodoo ceremony. The second day we're going to meet the voodoo pope Max Beauvoir, and after our meeting with Max to discuss certain things of how we do some stuff back over here, then we're going to go on the very trail that Dessalines followed as he was slaughtering crackers. He said, "Coupe-tête, boule-caille." Cut off their head and burn their damn houses. We need to go back to that thinking.
So check it out.
Freedom or death.
See if we can lock them in.
Freedom or death.
For the following Tuesday. Lock them in for the following Tuesday. So.
You got it. I'm locked in. But you just got to call me and remind me, because I'll be rolling, you know. But I always remember, coupe-tête, boule-caille. Take their heads and burn their houses.
Anybody? Come on now.
Because we're the only one that loves people who commit genocide against us. We embrace them and say, God told us so.
Got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The question of Akhenaten. Who was he?
He was the pharaoh of Egypt. Some people want to say that he might have been Moses. And so people said he was the first one to bring monotheism, but that's not true either. He reinstituted it. You remember, Akhenaten family comes in the 18th, it's the 18th dynasty. And it is his grandparents who drives the Hyksos out. And during that period that the Hyksos was there, they dispersed our institutions. So what happens under the 18th dynasty is a reestablishment of the institutions. But then they would become a coup. You remember, Akhenaten is the father of King Tut. But King Tut got an older brother called Simkara, who takes over after the father dies. Simkara takes over, then he's killed early. Then the young boy take over, and his name is not Tut Amen at first. His name is Tut Aton. Okay? It's the priests and the generals who was mixed with the family of the Hyksos invaders who would take over. So you get a priest named Haram-Heb, or a general named Haram-Heb, and I forgot what the priest's name, but out of that would rise the Ramesses as a dynasty. And then you will see a different kind of take on the spiritual development. The spiritual development then retreat more into what is now Sudan. But Akhenaten was an extraordinary intellectual, an extraordinary leader. If you read some of his letters, most of his letters you can find in most museums or in books today, he set up peace treaties with everybody around him. You know, matter of fact, his wife Nefertiti was a marriage of convenience to put the kingdom of Mitanni, which is northern Syria, southern Turkey, at peace with Egypt. That was all black then, with no white Turks, with no white Syrians. All of that was black. And Nefertiti, that one white statue of Nefertiti you see, which is in the museum in Germany, that's the only white statue. Of the hundreds and hundreds of statues, she is as black as Ace of Spades with lips and nose like all the rest of us. And the German guy who took that statue to Germany, when the king wanted to see the prizes he brought back from Egypt, he was ashamed to take this black woman's statue, so he messed with it, culled her down, and painted it It was an unfinished statue, and took that to the king. Then he wrote and apologized in the 1800s, and it wasn't until 10 years ago that they published the Cracker's apology that he fraudulently presented that Nefertiti thing that they show in all the books today.
Before you go
You know,
on, let me show
so.
you. You have one of your students that been
Hi,
in this
student.
since 19 years old. She just said, "Yo, I used to be in this class in City
Oh,
College."
girl, you must be a smart sister, ain't you?
Yeah, she said she got all your stuff.
Yeah. Okay, you were on it. Yes. Matter of fact, that we having a reunion of the Daughters and the Sons of Africa, 4 o'clock at the Clark House on Common Avenue, 141st, 142nd. Come by there. Yeah.
Talk about that reunion, brother.
Right. There's a reunion that's being held on Saturday at 4 p.m. until at the Clark House on Common Avenue between 142nd Street and 141st Street. And people are welcome. These are young people who started out with us at City students. They're married now and got their families. And I think what has occurred, they realized that what they had when they were in the movement, they can't find it where they've gone. So they're trying to reconstitute their relationships, which is a very good thing. You know, very good thing. So God bless them. So I'll be there. Yeah.
On the Nefertiti thing, how he desecrated the statue, and because he did desecrate the statue, because he didn't really want to turn it in. He wanted to keep it. Right.
He didn't want to show the king of Germany that the queen of Egypt was a black woman, so he counterfeited the statue of Nefertiti. And then that's the statue that's in the books. But the guy admitted before he died that he did this because he knew he was guilty. But they never published it in any scholarly document until about a year ago, and it was all over the internet. But if you look at all the other statues of Nefertiti, she looked like any African woman anywhere. Okay?
Let me ask you. When you see a lot of the statues and relics
With
the nose broken off, you know, when you see it on some of the white documentaries, they say, you know, they were damaged and they fell over, and the only thing that happened to them was the nose. Can you speak on that?
Oh, yeah, you find that throughout Africa, Central South America, while people built these civilizations, where the European anthropologists and archaeologists come in, and the first thing they do is break off the nose, because the nose is such an obvious identification of the African. So they break the nose. In some cases, they'll break the lips. But that has been a trademark of European American archaeology and anthropologists. You know, because when you get down, you get right down to earth, you got to deal with all the Africans that was in this country when they got here. Right. You know, even Christopher Columbus wrote about it. His brother wrote in his diary that I met Ethiopians who became our guides, you know. And you've got all of the Jesuits, who was the army of the Catholic Church, writing about these Ethiopians. That's what they call in Europe at that time. That was the word for black, right, that they found in North America.
So we do a lot of breathing, fire exercise, fire breaths, different breathing exercises. So that's a sort of life, that's a life force for us.
But white folks ain't that smart. They were just trying to cover up the fact that you were black. See, if they were smart enough, if they were smart, they would have been able to change the Bible. They really didn't change the Bible. Remember, the Bible is a collection of documents that black folks wrote about themselves. But white folks collected and put them together the way they wanted it and arranged them where they wanted. But the Pope was in Cameroon in 2009, and he was trying to recruit black folks to being in the Catholic Church again. So the Pope admits that 7 out of 10 of the original theologian of the Catholic Church was black, was Africans. St. Anthony's, St. Augustine, they tried to make a white man. A whole bunch of them, 7 out of the 10 original writers of the theology of the Catholic Church is black folks. You understand? Okay, the young brother here first, and then you can go through. Yeah.
Renika Rashad, he left a post. Renika Rashid. Okay, and and he says that Napoleon didn't blow off the nose of the Sphinx. What you think about that?
21 gun salute you talking about?
I guess he said the Sphinx with the nose. He said Napoleon. Yeah, he's saying that he didn't. He's saying that, yeah.
Well, I don't know if anybody has established it. I have great respect for Renoka, and that's his area of studies. He's been the one early focusing on black and Asia and so forth. So if Ronoko says that that's true, we know that the nose and the lips is in the museum in London. So how the British got it, we know they stole it, but it's in the museum in London. They took it during the time when they had this dude named Farouk, who they made the king of Egypt in the throne. So, but when you see the nose, the key to it, there's a painting. I use it sometimes on my Facebook page, and it's the picture that's painted by Napoleon's people. While they measure, they show you that they measure, and they paint him as an extreme African, no doubts about it. So even if they didn't shut the nose and the mouth off, when they got there it was intact, and they painted this Sphinx as an African. Now the Sphinx is older than the pyramids, and those 3 pyramids that you see there is the last 3. There was at least 2 sets of those 3 pyramids that had been built thousands and thousands and thousands of years earlier that had already fallen down. They're still there, and you can see them. So even the Ankh is found on what do you call it? The rock, volcanic rock in South Africa, 50,000 years before there is even a Kemet. So shit in Africa is old and deep. That's why I say voodoo is the foundation of all civilization. And if you don't understand voodoo, nothing else will make sense. You understand? If you think I'm joking, what happened when Christ comes in their metaphor in the Bible, and Mary gets pissed off and Martha with him because he didn't show up in time to save their brother's life. Christ said, don't worry about that shit, I got some juju. He rose in and raised Lazarus from the dead. We want to pretend that's cool, right? But when somebody used voodoo to do it, we say, oh, that's bad. But Christ dropped the voodoo right there on you and shit, all right? So, yeah.
Let me ask you, brother, the role of the black women today. Because for some reason, she thinks she's secondary but most necessary. Talk to our black women today about her role to the family and to the man today, to her husband.
And then we're going to talk about the husband's role to his woman. Okay, so long as we get that shit straight. Now, let me just tell the sisters, there's a book. The oldest religious text in the world is called the Pyramid Text. And in the Pyramid Text, there's a Genesis story. And God says, and in the text, God is called Amun. Amun means that which is unknown and unknowable, meaning we can't really know God. We can declare that God's there, but we don't know him. So Amun says, I create myself out of myself. I cause existence to exist so that existing might exist. And then he goes to all the things he deals with, the light, the air, all of the stuff. And then he gets to humans and he says, I created you, meaning the human being. And then I, God, expanded in you, meaning you are me. And then he closes his Genesis story and says, by now he has evolved from Amun, the unknown, to Ra, the manifestation of the unknown. And then he says, but when I realized myself to be in existence, I looked and beside me stood the woman. And that was his daughter he calls Ma'at. He said, when I became conscious of being God, Ma'at was there. But then he takes it to another level that's deeper than that. He says, and I, God, out of my mother, Nun, who is the ultimate God of creation. People won't break that down, but the oldest book that talks about a Genesis story, and that's where the Bible gets its Genesis story from, almost word to word. And so in that Genesis story, God says, after he explained all the work that he had done, how he created Shu and Tefnut, and how Shu and Tefnut created Geb, which is earth, and Nut, which is sky, and how Nut and the sky and the earth and the air and the moisture created the human being, a Sar and a Set. He breaks all that stuff down. And then he turns around and tells everybody that's reading that I come from a woman, that a woman is God, that nothing existed but this woman called Nun. And out of this thing called Nun, the black woman, is called the black primordial waters. And out of her arise what we call God. And in our book, God proclaims that as his existence. And so one of the reasons why black women are under such attack in America and the Western world, because the European understands very clearly that you are God having a human experience. But you don't understand that clearly, because you think God got to be some spooky shit up in the sky somewhere. You know, they can be no God without you. If God is every and all things at once, It means God occupies all space and time. So everything that exists is an expression of an aspect of that divinity. There's nothing in existence that have a greater power than the first manifestation as a human being, which was the black woman. The black woman is the first manifestation as a human being, and you manifest out of God's essence itself. If you understand that, the rest of this shit is elementary. Because you're the power. Don't let nobody fool you. You know, when Dr. Benjamin said heaven between a black woman's leg, people thought that was an offensive thing. No. You find me a black man that would rather go anywhere else except there, okay? And you find me a living being, other than a few little chemical things that play tricks with lately, where life don't come out of the belly of that black woman.
That's right.
Okay. But because people have abused you, because you're teaching, they're not scared of your body. Y'all got some fine bodies. I'm going to tell you that right straight up front. Because I'm a brother who appreciates black women. But they're afraid of your mind. They're afraid of what you'll do. Because all through slavery, with all that shit they did to us, when we walked out in 1865, between 1865 and 1929, when the stock market crashed, we opened 75 banks. No, seven, no, that's, we got the credit, that's the, I'm gonna break that down. Okay. So we are 75, that was critical banks, 50-something insurance company, then we opened a couple of thousand, what they call beneficent credit unions, which evolved into banks as we went along. Now, and that don't count the thousands of schools we opened. And we just stepped out of slavery. You know why we were able to do all that? Because that black woman kept us black. That black woman who had those children in her belly, that's when the children start learning. What she thinks goes into the very cell that make up the child.
So how did we lose these stores that we see today with the arrows? Because they was mom and pop stores in the 60s.
Right. We lost it because somebody declared war on black America. They didn't declare war on all black people. They declared war on the African American population because the African American population was the only population in armed resistance against the American government. Nobody, if you think we weren't in armed resistance, go look at what was happening in the major cities around this country when Dr. King died. Go look at what happened before Doc died in LA and Detroit and here. We were in armed resistance. That's why they brought in the National Guard and the military, because they were fighting some people who were shooting at their asses and some of them were dying. And so they understood that from the time when let's go back to the Civil War. Go back to the Civil War. In the Civil War, and the white Southern cracker had defeated the Northern cracker, all right? Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania. So if you're fighting the Battle of Gettysburg, they're already up in the north. New York is next. New Jersey and New York is next. So if you're fighting a battle at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, you're losing the war to the south. That's when Lincoln said to Fred Douglass, where your brothers at? All right? And we rolled up in there 300,000 strong from the north, and we came from the south more than 500,000 strong, who ran off the plantation and started working under the northern generals in the south. We won that Civil War. That's our war of liberation. The lion crackers won't even give you the history. That's not even talking about our participation in the war along the Mississippi River, where we really kicked butt, and in the western sector. If it wasn't for us, everybody would be whistling Dixie in America today. That was our war of liberation. We won it, and they didn't even want to pay us equal pay. You understand? Brothers was fighting without no boots on, but we fought anyway. We didn't go to fight for no damn boots. We went to fight for freedom. You know? It's like Nat Turner, who triggered a lot of this, that ended up having this war. When they captured Nat Turner, and they had him in court, and they said, who's your leader? He says, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. So the cracker don't know who Jean-Jacques Dessalines is. So he tells the district attorney, go find out who this leader is, because we need to find him. So they come back and say, well, that was the first emperor of Haiti, but he's dead. So they bring Turner back again and said, well, who is your leader? He said, my leader is Jean-Jacques Dessalines. And then they realized he was talking about the spirit of revolution. He was talking about the spirit of Africa. You know? Dessalines coined the word freedom or death. We hear the December 12th movement using it today.
They give it to the dude in New Hampshire.
No. Dessalines, in Dessalines' writing, he says, liberty or death is our mantra. This is the speech he's given when he's doing his first constitution that Pétion and the other brothers helped put together for him. And they put that Constitution together without looking at any other cracker's Constitution. You all ought to read it. Look at Dessalines' Constitution. It will blow your mind, the humanity. And then he told the white folks, he told the Germans, he says, y'all fought with us. Y'all can stay here in Haiti and raise your families, but you're going to be honorary blacks. He told the police, he says, y'all fought beside us. Stay and be honorary black. He told the French, for the crime you've committed against us and the damage you did to our people, you got to go. And he got a ship, and he fully equipped the ship with supplies, enough food and water to get them home. And he even gave them guns to protect them against piracy. And he says, any of you that don't get on the ship, coup peut-être, boule kai. We're going to cut off your damn head, and we're going to burn your house. They didn't believe him, so some crackers stayed. Said, we ain't going nowhere. So he got his army together, and he went around and he practiced coup peut-être, boule kai. Over 2,000 of them Dessalines killed. And that's why we hear about Toussaint and we don't hear about Dessalines, because everybody got angry. That's why he was assassinated. And dig the assassination. They assassinated him, cut the brother in 14 pieces. Where did that come from? The Osiris trilogy. Scattered the bodies, but then you had his wife, Félicité, and Sister Cecilia, the voodoo priest, and Defele. Those women organized and got together, collected the 14 pieces, sewed that brother back together, and buried him appropriately. And then Pétion and the other murderers, they came with the priest and the bishop and stuff out from the Catholic Church, and they went and dug the body up and cut his head off and put the head in the basilica. So when the earthquake came the other day, it threw the basilica to the ground. And the brothers and sisters got his skull back. And so they had the first funeral, legitimate voodoo funeral for Dessalines 2 years ago, led by Max Beauvoir, the Pope of the Voodoo in Haiti, in October. And so that's why I'm going down to Haiti on Monday. We're going to celebrate our emperors, rising and reascending. Because the one thing Haiti did, Haiti said, any black man anywhere in the world, if you escape from slavery or if you're free, come to Haiti. And when you put your foot on these soils, you're a free man, and we will fight anybody that comes to get you. That scared the crackers, you know.
Any more questions, anybody?
Back to the economic piece.
All right, yes. Go ahead, Sutek. Bring the brother back to the economic piece, and we can close out with that one.
Okay. All right. So, getting back on our economics, like I said before, we had a lot of great leaders that came before us,
right,
that came to us with solutions on what we need to do. Now, as time changes, we have to update their methods. We have to adjust with the times. Based on what Marcus was teaching, what Amos Wilson was teaching, what Claude Anderson is teaching now, what do you say we need to do in order to compete? Because what it is, to me, is a competition with other ethnic groups. What do we need to do to compete with these other ethnic groups so that we could get up out of this condition?
The only way you're going to beat them is you shop with your own people. You cannot shop with your competitor and expect to win the economic war. It's like playing basketball, but I'm shooting in the other man's net. I can never win that game. Playing football, I'm constantly giving them touchbacks, running across the other goal. You can never win that game. And the other game you cannot win. You can't win the game of football playing basketball. And you cannot win the game of basketball playing football. You've got to be able to play the game that's being played. And the game that's being played is everybody take care of yourself. If you go to Chinatown, there's no black folks running around Chinatown selling nothing. They got a Chinatown because they own and control it from top to bottom economically. Okay? You go to Williamsburg in Brooklyn, you bet nothing you're going to own nothing up in the Jewish neighborhood. And they dress in all kinds of clothing, and nobody call them weird. Brothers on the Nation wear little bow ties. They want to try to criticize them and negativize them. People over there wearing knickers with strange hairdos and long black coats in the middle of the summer with big hats, and we think that's normal because they've made us think that's normal. What you've got to do is what I was taught by Malcolm, is you got to do for yourself what you used to beg for. Do for yourself what you once begged for. And the only way you can do for yourself, and the only way your son can be guaranteed a job, and your daughter can be guaranteed a job, and your grandchildren guaranteed a job, and your husband and you, your wife, guarantee a job, is that you've got to spend your money with your people. If I'm going to buy this jacket, yesterday I was downtown with the brothers from FUBU. So If I'm gonna buy any kind of designer clothes, let me buy the FUBU Brothers designer clothes. And you know, I went in that day on the 66th floor at the Empire State Building. I didn't see a white person working up in there for them. And them brothers got about a quarter of that floor. And every office I went in, they looked just like us. You understand? So at least those youngsters, we're not paying attention to them. But if I'm going to buy some sneakers, let's find out what black company is making it. And if there aren't any making it, let's get our heads together and set it up in Haiti or in South Bronx or in Ghana somewhere. Now, the question brother had raised about our brothers and sisters from the continent, they're no more or no less victims of slavery and colonialism than the rest of us. Though we must be critical of their negative behavior, we cannot, but we can't let them push us off the cliff. See? If you're the leader, then you got to act like the leader. When you come to America, this is our home. This is the African-American home. All other brothers and sisters should pay respect to us. If brothers and sisters don't pay respect to you, then you got to deal with them like they present themselves. You understand? If I go to Ghana, I'm not going to go into Ghana trying to run over the Ghanaians. I go to Jamaica, I got to give deference to my Jamaican brother. That's his home. So when our brothers and sisters come here to America, they got to give deference to us. I go to the Dominican Republic, I look like a fool running in going, "Capasa," and then start talking like I'm insane. No, I got to pay deference to my Dominican brother, deference to my Puerto Rican brother, deference to my Colombian brother. But when you come to America, pay deference to me and my history. Partner with me. Let us fight the devil together, because the only reason you came to this country, because that devil made it so uncomfortable and unlivable in your home. So we're fighting the same devil, so let's deal with that devil together. Don't come over here and join the devil. You know what I'm saying? Because the devil is the one that made you leave home. Nobody wants to leave home. You leave home because you're looking for a way to provide some food, clothing, shelter, safety for yourself and your family. And you're hoping one day you get enough, you can go back home. Of course, that usually don't happen, because when you get over here and you realize this is an illusion, and you get caught up in the illusion, you're an old man or an old woman ready to die before you can get back home. So when we have to leave our homes, partner with the one who's fighting the devil. That's us, the African American. We fight crackers. Other people are scared to fight crackers. We fight crackers. And the whole world know that. And the world respect us on one hand for that and fear us on the other hand for that. But had we not fought crackers, there'd be no place for our brothers and sisters to even come to and get some substance. So let's partner with each other. We're the majority. If the black and the Latino black and the Caribbean black and the African black got together, we're the majority of America. We rule this shit. But if he got you over there saying I'm Jamaican, and you over here saying I'm from South Carolina, and you over there saying I'm from Port of Spain, and you over there saying I'm from Dominican Republic, then he gonna rule the world. 9% is gonna rule the 91%. And the only way we bring that to a stop, the other piece that's important, you must know your history, because that's how you hook up with your ancestry. Your history is simply a dialogue with your ancestry. It is your ancestors that instruct and inform you of how to behave, because they already went around the corner and they've met the devil. They've experienced the devil. They have died knowing the devil. Now their experience come back around that corner and tell you about that devil before you get around the corner, and you're ready for him. You understand? And so history becomes important, because history gives you self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, courage, and self-identity. And when you put that in a package, nobody can sell you nothing that ain't yours. You won't shop with nobody that ain't yours. You won't let nobody mess with your woman in an abusive fashion, and you won't do it in an abusive fashion. Here we got God. You're the most desired creature on the planet Earth. Don't let nobody say shit to you. You understand? You are. And the whole world know it. And yet to try to make you not know it, because they don't know how to appreciate you, they're going to beat you down and make you think something wrong with you, while still trying to take advantage of you. Meaning, and so that's why, and you're the only one that didn't ask the question. This black woman want to ask the question.
I want you to elaborate on the Madonna, the one that they worship, like, and what's that?
Oh, girl, you asked the right question.
Yes.
The worship of the Madonna and Child is a worshiping of the black woman. That's all it is, okay? The first Madonna and Child is a Set, who they call Isis, with the son they call Horus, who the African call Heru. The next Madonna and Child is in Ethiopia. And that Madonna and Child is painted in the 6th century. Michelangelo and his great-great-great-great-great-grannies wasn't born yet, okay? When the European takes over militarily North Africa, they copied all of our institutions. And one of those institutions was the mother and the child, not understanding what the symbol meant. See, it wasn't just the mother and the child, but it was the mother, father, and the child, okay? The symbol of God is the family. Do you understand me? The symbol of God is the family. And so that's why the family become the basis of all economics. You, the black woman, when you walk into your house, you got to look and see what food I got to prepare. Then the fundamental question is, where did you buy it from? You got to look and see what furniture I'm sitting on. Next question is, where did I buy it from? You got to look and say, what clothes am I going to buy for my children and myself and my husband? And then you got to ask the question, where you bought it from? So the black woman, if you go, after the First World War, the resistance movement that led up to the revolutions in Africa that overthrew colonialism was not started by black men. It was started by the market women of Nigeria. Them black women, the cracker came in and says, these women, because the women in Africa run the marketplaces, not men. The women run the economic and traditional Africa. So the cracker came and tried to tax them. The sister says, tax what? And they turned that shit out in Nigeria. That led to the movement in Nigeria that saw Ezekwe finally rising to power. It was the women in Nigeria that triggered the women in Ghana, all right, to start their movement against British totalitarianism that led to bringing in Nkrumah and the others to power. But no one talks about the woman movement, economic movement in the marketplaces of Africa that triggered the resistance movement against colonialism. So y'all still rule the world, even when y'all ain't saying nothing, you know? And you need to understand that. When you see the symbol of the Madonna and Child, you're seeing the worship of the black woman, all right? She's the mother of God, just like the pyramid text says. Amun-Ra says to the world, and I, God of gods, because that's what Amun-Ra means, I'm both the hidden and the manifestation of divine ideation, and I come from my mother, Nun. That's that. That's the way that is. But economics is the first principle of survival. Economics is the first principle of revolution. Define what your economic reality is and then create a politics. Politics is how you inform and instruct your people to recognize what's best for themselves and get them to go to work and organize structure to do that thing that's best for themselves. So your politics become your management instrument for your economic reality. And economics is the wealth in your ecology. So if we in this city, what is the wealth in the ecology? We don't have gold or oil here. What's the wealth? The wealth is real estate. What's the wealth? The wealth is retailing, what you're doing, selling stuff. What is the wealth? The wealth is being able to get, every year, the federal government who take all our tax money, give a certain amount back to the city and the states, which they call grants, federal grants, or earmark monies. Everybody is put together not-for-profit to eat that money up except us. All right? We have to learn how to eat that money. How do we get that money back into our community to allow us to build? That's your tax dollars. So those is the wealth in your environment. The other things in your environment that are wealth is creating clothing lines that reflect your culture and then selling that to yourself. Creating cuisines, the food. Our food is some of the best cuisines in the world, but we've allowed for the Europeans to mess with our cuisine. So they own our cuisine. So they're selling our stuff and they relegate us to a few pieces of pig feet and say that's soul food. But we did all the cooking in America, so whose cuisine are we talking about? You know, we were in all the kitchens, all right?
I remember I went to an Italian restaurant and I walked into the back and guess who was back there cooking the Italian food?
Absolutely.
All black folks.
Yes.
All black. I went to high school with one of the kids.
That's the same thing.
Manners is owned by a Korean.
No, but the bottom line is, all of the cuisine that's called American cuisine, those are African American cuisine. So we need to take our stuff back. You understand? Take our stuff back. But that's part of your culture. Your food is your culture because that evolved out of your situation. You know? Same thing with location. All these buses coming to Harlem bringing people on tours. We need to get, I know Tony Rogers and some others is dealing with a Harlem, what do you call it? Dealing with a Harlem tourism agency that they've put up. But we should be down there bringing folks, letting them pay to come and walk through our community. That's tourism is about selling your ethnic and your ethno-cultural history to the rest of the world. You know? Yes, sir.
We were speaking about how women are in control of the economics in Africa and even in America, and we noticed that it's easier for the black women to get corporate jobs than it is for black men. So when you have the sisters that getting these good jobs and they making 50,000 plus annually, and then you have brothers like me who are good brothers, but we street vendors. And how do we recondition our sisters' minds to understand that that's the paradigm that we dealing with, and that they need, instead of just getting a white man because they making that type of income, that they should uplift a black street vendor or a brother that's good. You know what I'm saying?
If you could just do that, they would be doing that. That's where history comes in. If you don't know your history and you don't know your culture, then you will behave in a manner that's inappropriate to your survival. And it's not just sisters. There's brothers all through the American corporate structure. They're behaving inappropriate also. Inappropriate behavior means you're not behaving in a way that would allow your group to survive. That comes out of ignorance. Having a degree from an American university is not intelligence. Okay? The highest degree a person can have is to comprehend how he's going to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for his family. If you can have all the degrees in the world, and you can't figure out how you're going to do that, how are you going to tell me I'm going to have a degree, and I'm going to raise my child and send him to college, and I don't give a damn about your children? That's cool, because, see, your son going to grab my little daughter, and that's going to be the end of that. And my daughter going to grab your little cute son with his little MBA, and that's going to be the end of that. So if you don't take care of all of the family, that part of the family that you don't take care of going to bring harm to the part that you thought you had taken care of. It's just as simple as that, common sense. And that's why everything is about the group. African culture is about the family. That's why in Africa you will not find a picture, in no African society do they have a picture of God. The symbol for God throughout Africa is the man, woman, and child, the family. That's the symbol of God. Okay? The family is the symbol of God. And once you understand that the family is the symbol of God, then we'll stop letting people put their ethno-image, little faggot men, in front of us. This brother's got a question, stuff.
Probably a bit naive. Yeah, the reverse question to that. What's the role of the African-American male in the home? What's the role of the African-American male in America today? What role does we play? What do we manifest? You know, how do we come out and manifest that?
Well, the brother's asking, what is the role of the African-American male? And that hasn't changed. The role of the male is to be the father in a unit called a family. And just as the role of the female is to be a mother in the unit called a family, and the role of the children is to be the offspring and the future of that unit. Now, how do you get what's happening in America? The most feared being in America is the African-American male. Everybody's afraid of him because we've already proven. Because look at the history of America. Without the African-American male, there is no America. Every ethnic group that have migrated to this country and call themselves minority, all the rights and the privileges they enjoy, we killed for that and bled for that and died for that. So they're not interested in putting another ethnic group down because they're subservient consciously to the white American. The African-American, we know the devil. We're not subservient to him. So he's got to beat us into servitude. So that's why you got the drugs was brought into this country by the government of the United States. Remember a guy named Oliver North? Anybody remember Oliver North? He was a American military man who went to prison for bringing drugs in this country at a National Guard base in Arkansas when Clinton was the president. Bill Clinton was a part of the drug dealing to the black community. He was the governor in Arkansas, and black people are going around calling him the first black president. Clinton is one of the worst, most dirty crackers there is. When the thing happened in Rwanda, Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. I was in Rwanda when that happened. I was with Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, when that went down. And they started moving to the borders. Susan Rice, that little creep, who's now the secretary of whatever, you know, who's hiding, we never see her. She was the undersecretary for Africa when Rwanda went down. So we get these filthy little people running around through government, and we don't know what they did. It came out 2 years ago that the government of the United States killed Patrice Lumumba, They've now admitted to it, but you don't know who gave the final word. Eisenhower started the process to murder Lumumba, but Kennedy carried it out. And yet we got John Kennedy's picture up on our wall. So we need to ask some historical questions about reality, you know, just to know reality. And so, peace and love, brother. So we can understand. Yeah. No. Kennedy got killed in a family feud. That was simply a family feud. It didn't have none. Kennedy got killed in a feud between his family and the gangsters. Bobby Kennedy put more mafias in jail than anybody in the history before.
And they put him in
Okay,
office.
and the mafia financed Joe Kennedy to get his son elected. So they felt betrayed when Kennedy didn't help them keep Cuba. And so the mafia, working with the FBI, killed the president, and probably the CIA, because the CIA wanted to take Cuba. Kennedy wasn't willing to go at it that way. So that's why they locked up the files for 99 years. Why would you lock up the files on the death of the president for 99 years? What the hell are you trying to hide? We'll all be dead, and we'll never know the story, and the future won't care, you know? So we just have to be honest enough to understand history and respect history. Where you from, my brother? I just got to ask. Okay. Where's your ancestors from? Puerto Rico. Right, okay. See, and the thing, and see, no, but
what happened to that relationship?
White people. So I remember when Dominican Republic was Haiti, when the revolution was first won, but the Spanish was able to defeat us and take that part back. You know. Professor Larry. How are you doing, sir? Brother Larry. All right, sir. But let me finish. Then I'm gonna let my brother ask this question. See, in the '60s, the Latino community in America and the black community, we fought as one. But then we had people in our community who went for the okie doke. And if you remember when Mayor Beam was in office and Herman Badillo was the big man, Herman cut some deals with Mayor Beam to split those two communities. And then in the end, they treated him like he was nobody. But he was part of the one that cut that deal. That say, remember they had the big thing in Yankee Stadium in 1969, where they were presenting the Latino educational agenda, and Herman Badillo was leading that whole move. But nobody ever asked that Herman was married to a Jewish woman too at the time he was doing this. So we need. Is that your car? Any of our people's car? Oh, okay. And right. So no, I'm walking today. So I couldn't afford no BMW. I got a Mitsubishi. But the bottom line is you have to understand the Latino, that's a culture. My wife is lighter than him. Most of my children is lighter than him. My father-in-law, who came from St. Martin, could pass for any white man in America, but he was the most African man I ever met. His name was Sixto. Eugenio Tandu, and they call him Sixto. Bad African man. And so, okay. So I just wanted to understand that the Latino community is not a white community, that's a black community. All right? That means the majority of the community may be light-skinned, but we can go to Jamaica and find communities as light as any Latino community. We can go to Haiti, we can go to Trinidad, you know what I'm saying? Remember, you can go to Ghana, because we didn't just start getting light when we came to America, which a lot of people don't understand. So, yes, sir.
Professor Larry, Brother Larry right here, his biggest fight is to get our people to stop using the word nigger. He said because when we use the word nigger, this is what the white man would do, kill that nigger, lynch that nigger. How important is that word nigger, brother?
I don't know if I fully agree with that, because I would like to see the black man that ever heard a white man call him a nigger.
Hold on, say that again?
I would like to meet the black man that met a white man that called him a nigger, because they ain't the white man that got the testicles to call another black man a nigger to his face. He had to be a bad motherfucker to do that. Now, I grew up in the South on a plantation, and no white man would dare utter that word. If they were talking about that in their own company, we don't know about it. But what we've got to be careful of, is that people give us wars to fight. Because that word nigger, before the white American made it negative, simply meant black. Because he, in his Irish, Scottish sense, couldn't say negrito, so he had to say nagra, which he reduced to naga, and then we reduced the nigger. Now, I remember the time when we treated the word Africa the same way. I'm old enough to remember when we treated the word black the same way. If we want to take the word out of our lexicon, it should be up to us, and I agree with the professor. If it has been put in a context where it is more harmful than good, then it's up to us to modify it or remove it. But don't let them set that agenda. We set that agenda.
You said you remember when the word Africa and the other word, what's that?
When the word Africa and the word black was treated in the same way as the word nigger. You call somebody an African, they will whip. You call back in the day, and when I'm saying today, I'm talking about like the late 50s and the 60s, where no one would call themselves African because we thought that was a filthy word. We didn't call ourselves black because we thought that was a filthy word because white people made us think it was a filthy word. And then nigger became the last one. We never conquered that because we were moving away from Negro. Even we thought Negro was as bad as nigger when we discovered black. I think the dialogue has to be among us. If we think the word is inappropriate, we need to then figure out how we're going to deal with either saying what the word really means or accept what the meaning the white man assigned to it. Okay? But there's nothing, and you can look up that word, and nothing in that word is negative, except in the United States of America.
Want to answer that? Let me answer you on that one.
Professor Smalls. Yes. This is a pleasure.
It's a pleasure meeting you, Larry, and I'm just meeting you, but I'm happy.
Absolutely. I've actually rebutted your stance on this word in video format and in comment format. And I'm kind of thinking that you're not considering it from my perspective. Let me give it to you from my perspective. Okay? I'm not talking about what Europeans consider, think, or feel. I'm talking about what you and I have witnessed in our own community amongst our own people and now runs rampant amongst our youth. The girls call themselves nigger. The boys call themselves nigger. The grown men, the grown women, right? Old people, okay? They call their babies nigger, right? And they mean it the same way that white people meant. Now, what white people meant was just us, just a black person. Now, they didn't assign any special meaning to it. It's just that they were some nasty bastards. You understand? So now, in internalizing this, we took it the way they meant it because we assigned it to ourselves indiscriminately, right? But then we assign it to everything else. They call a car nigger. The dogs nigger. They call white people niggas. The Arabs in the stores niggas. All the Spanish people walking around here call themselves niggas now, right? You got Oriental people coming to this country, never heard the word, and adopted. It is a mental disorder, right? You know about introjection, right? So now, if introjection affects people in months, imagine in 300 years, hearing it day in, day out, how it affected us. Now, when you take the same word that you're using indiscriminately without any particular meaning assigned to it, hey, my nigga, and then you get upset and you take the same word and now it turns into a spear that you jugging people with. Fucking kill this faggot ass. That's psychological. That's trauma. That's transgenerational trauma. That's been passed down from the plantation.
I agree 100%.
All I'm saying, brother, is when you look, right, and you have young people identify themselves as niggas, the way that you would identify yourself as Ashanti, and do it proudly, something's wrong.
You see, it isn't that word that's the problem. It's the self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, and self-hatred that come from not knowing your history, and especially the history of that word. I agree with you. Where we're caught now, the word is a dangerous, damaging instrument. I was trying to say it in a nicer way, but I'm gonna say, because I got to respect you, because I understand where you're coming from. But I remember when I was young, and my mama put her arms around me and said, "You my nigga till God pull the trigger." She meant, "I love you." She meant, "I love you." But something happened starting in the late 60s and the 70s, because one of the main instruments for setting the social dialogue was our music. and the Jews and the Italians who run the music industry start dictating the lyrics and the dialogue, and they helped create a dialogue that took that word and turned it into popularize it as poison. And so I agree with you that we do have to decide what we're going to do with the poison. So I'm not going to fight you on that because you're absolutely right.
Let me query you now.
Uh-huh.
Let me query you now. Senior that you are, that we have never undertaken the task of naming ourselves as a people in this country. We adopt names from time to time. We politicize names from time to time. And we accept names from time to time. But we have never convened a conference to name ourselves as a part or as a precursor to nationalism. Because you can't be national without a name.
That's not completely true. First of all, when you say we, of the 60 to 80 million of us, we have been so disorganized, it's hard to say a we when you have to take an action. I remember in the 60s, we did in SNCC, we did in OAU, have meetings and had forums to talk about launching black as our operative name. And that's what we did. That's how it got out here. It didn't get out here because some newspaper did it. We were deliberate about making black the word and not Negro the word. Something happened in that period, and the media promoted it, but we missed something. See, while they were promoting us, yeah, we out saying black and proud, and we out here trying to get people to say black instead of Negro, they conveniently changed the names on the legal governmental document from Negro to minority. And that was the biggest coup d'etat that ever pulled on us, but we didn't see it until later. Some of us saw it early. I wrote a paper on it in '72, Who's Third in the Third World? And I was talking about us when they put us in that category as minority. We did the same thing when we started talking about African American, but we moved past African American very fast into calling ourselves African American, from Afro American, I'm sorry, who Malcolm was coining. We sit down and discuss that too in many different forums around the country. And you know, the nationalist community wasn't that big, and the Pan-African community wasn't that big. And the community that was caught up in the so-called civil rights identity did not want to even partner with us because they were afraid of the view the system took towards us. So there was some attempt, but I will agree with you that it was not done at the level, like say, at the Gary, Indiana political conference, where we had people from all over the nation. And we still need to do that now. I will agree with you, because I've been contemplating calling such a conference. I think we need to also call a conference on the red, black, and green flag and accept it outright once and for all. We haven't done that either. Yes.
Understanding the need for such a conference, right? You can also then appreciate that at the same time, with the same stroke of the pen, declaring ourselves a people and naming ourselves would also eliminate nigger.
Maybe, if that's what we decide. I don't know. See, I don't like the...
That's why it has to be referendum.
Right. A referendum as much as you can. Remember, you can referendum an organized unit. It's very hard to referendum a disorganized unit. So you can try to pick the element of that disorganized unit that we consider to be organized, and that becomes the vanguard of what we're doing. So, but I'm not going to fight you on that issue, because I'm going to have to partner and agree with you that the word nigger is used so negatively and profane now, it is not of any use to us. So I got to support you. I'm not going to, you on it. In a way, I'm not even on it. I was just trying to give a historical explanation of it, but I'm not stupid. If I step my glass on the table at a bar and I see some shit in there that ain't supposed to be in there, I'm knocking the glass over the way I was taught and ask for a new drink. So that's how I view that word. We know the word started out as a legitimate word that meant black, but we knew our enemy created a context for it. And I've seen so much stuff of people trying to find the root of that word. Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm gonna agree with you that it started out as a corruption of the word that meant black. Okay. They couldn't properly pronounce it. Okay, I'm with you. Right? Yeah. So, but my biggest thing is that if a young man is calling himself something, and a young lady is calling herself the exact same thing and mean the exact same thing in the exact same way.
I agree with you. When they're calling themselves that, Yeah, we do have a psychological disconnect. Anytime you don't know your history, you got a psychological disconnect. Anytime you don't know your culture, you got a psychological disconnect. Anytime you don't know your spiritual understanding of reality, you have a psychological disconnect. So we know that's the big part of the war we're in. We're in a spiritual war and a cultural war, and the spiritual and the cultural aspect of the war is more significant than the economic and the political aspect of the war. But and so within the context of that, and we know our children are doing it, they're using a poison sword. We must take the poison sword, nigger, from their hands. I can't fight you on that. I'm telling you, I'm your comrade on that. I was just trying to break it down and give some context to it, you know. But I understand what it has become.
We have individuals. We have individuals who they take up the conscious armor, right? And they're getting psychologically manipulated into thinking that saying that word in a vibrant way is expressing positive emotion, right? They don't understand the experiments that Pavlov did with those dogs, right? So to me, nigga is a trigger, because I've watched argument after argument escalate with the escalation of the usage of the word, right? I've seen friends playing and then started nigga and turn into serious fights. It triggers that psychosis.
You're absolutely right. But until you replace that expression in the consciousness of those human beings, I remember the first time I went to something he had, Ray Hagan and Wesley. But there was a young brother who was trying to kill some time. And the young brother was talking about how he used to mug old ladies in the street. And he made it sound like we should be happy he don't do it no more. And I wanted to go up on the stage and whip the hell out of him. But, you know, I was just trying to understand at age 69, I'm not, you know, I tried all my life to stay with the youth. But you are at a certain age where you have thinking. How are they thinking? What Sonetta and others have done is brought those youth before us. Many of the young men and women who say they're in the conscious community, they don't even know the definition of consciousness. You understand? They're thinking because I have some historical information, I have some historical facts, or I'm willing to debate or argue, that makes me conscious. No. Consciousness having to do with being aware of your reality at the very instant of that happening, and then be a full participant in that reality. And so a lot of our youngsters are learning the history, but they're not participating fully in the reality.
Family, that's the best definition of consciousness that I've heard thus far, right? Because you know, Brother Larry will tell you, you're only conscious if you got a pulse, right?
If you got a pulse?
Thank you, Brother Larry. Okay. Yes, sir. A pulse, like yeah. And so, you know, in the end, in the final analysis, when we look at Africa, our mother and father place, every language I've looked at, the word for people, person, place, or thing, you have the what's the first part of a word called? The prefix. The suffix of in all the language, the suffix for person, people, place, or thing, in all the African language you can look at, is the name of their divinity. So like we say, Bantu. And we say, oh, Bantu, remember at the time in South Africa, some Bantu was a negative word, but nobody ever looked at the word. That's right. And the Intu means God. So God people. And Muntu, talking about the person, that's Muntu, God's person. And so that Intu meant the divine is in all things. And then it goes back to the pyramid text where it's written by the ancestor that the divine says, after I created you, I expanded in you. And so in all of our language, that's what we are saying. And so if that's what we're saying, then we're talking about perfection, and that means moving away from desecration, which then makes your argument the superior argument. So I just have to let you know that, you know.
He said we are our own people now.
We are. We are, and I fully agree with that. Like people say, Small, why do you say African American? Folks get mad because I put the two together. So I says America's a geopolitical place that we're participating in. Africa is our race. But when you put your geopolitical place and your race together, that's your ethnic nation. We're no longer Yoruba or Akan or Zulu. We created a new nation because we've been having a common historical experience for almost 500 years. And that common historical experience have allowed us to create another way of looking at reality and responding to reality using some different tools than we used in ancient times. Hey, Brother Rob. this is my big brother here from Yonkers. This is the culture man up there, you know. So I'm an African American. That means that's my ethnic nation. I'm an African. That's my racial space. America is the geopolitical institution we are functioning in, and we need to take this shit. You understand? Politically. We need to take it economically. If we don't understand that we can take it. Imagine we spent $1 trillion last year with mainly whites and non-blacks. What if we took that $1 trillion and spent it only to ourselves? We already in charge. You know, they're only living because they're feeding off of us. And I started the discussion saying that we have become saprophytes for Eurocentric parasites. And those parasites are feeding off of us economically. The minute we take that back, they're beggars at our doors.
Powerful, brother. Give it up for our brother, Professor Smalls. Give it up for him. Thank you, brother. Larry, closing out.
The trick in that is that they're controlling us through the media.
Absolutely.
Right? So that the images that they're flashing in our minds constantly, they have these sexy ads for sneakers. Right? For sneakers that have people lining up and spending the night just to get a pair. Right?
And let Brother Jack with a quick comment.
Okay, so we want to thank Professor Smalls for coming out, giving us his wisdom. Let's give it up, Professor Smalls. All right, now. Let's give it up for Professor Larry coming in with some brilliant questions. For all of y'all out there that say we don't bring it to the streets, that all we do is sit around and start stuff, here we are in the streets bringing the knowledge to the people like the old days.
These are African merchants, and these African merchants are out there every day trying to make a living, provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for themselves and their families. And we as a community.
Hold up.
These brothers are African merchants out here trying to provide food, clothing, shelter, safety, and security for their family. And we as a community should come out and spend our money and support them. A lot of the things we're buying in the stores we can buy right here on the sidewalk. Since they won't allow us to get stores, we can't get the bank loan to get money to rent with. That's fine. So we have a low overhead. Help us increase our overhead so we can provide better for our family. Peace and love, brothers and sisters. Y'all stay strong. It's freedom or death. And like Dessalines says, coupe tete, boule kai. Take their heads and burn their damn houses.
Peace.
Peace and Black Power family. I hope you enjoyed Professor James Smalls. Alright? Make sure you pick up these DVDs. They are ready. These are new DVDs. Shaka Utmost Cracking the Codes of Islam, Part 1 and 2. And of course, this is very powerful. The Secret History of Jewish Domination. You want to get that. The new Phil Valentine, Shadows of the Dark Exposed. And of course, Shaka Utmost. Get these DVDs, family. You can go to www.houseofconsciousness.com. Support me to support you. Peace and Black Power, family.